this is what's going to happen. There's going to be a, shall we say, heart transplant, right? Vidyate hridaya grantis. The word hridaya is mentioned several times in the first few verses of the Bhagavatam. This is what's going to happen. Like when you're going to have a procedure, and the doctor, the surgeon, the nurses, they tell you, okay, this is what's going to happen. We're going to open you in half, and we're going to insert a stem or something, one of those things. So in the same way, the Bhagavatam warns us, this is what's going to happen. You know, your heart, it's going to be, we may say, invaded. You know, like you have invasive procedures, you have different types of. So the heart is going to be open, and through the process of hearing, bhakti is going to be established there. That's what's going to happen. So it's so powerful that just by hearing it, then our heart becomes cleansed, and bhakti becomes established. So in this, we may say, curriculum that Krishna presents in the Bhagavad Gita, one of the things that it is quite important to notice is how Arjuna asks the qualities of a devotee, right? The characteristics of a devotee. In chapter 2, the characteristics of the transcendentalists are also described in chapter 5. The last 8 verses, I think, from chapter 12 also describe those devotees who are dear to Krishna. He says these are dear, more dear, very, very dear. And at the end of the Gita, Krishna explains that there is the most dear devotee. And what is the most dear devotee? Chapter 18 takes the one who preaches. He says, and there will be no one more dear to me than him. Right? So he gives some hints. And therefore, the Bhagavatam presents those examples. Because there was no time, right? The war was about to start. It is said that the conversation took around an hour or so. So there's no time. But the Bhagavatam has so much time, in one sense. Right? When we read in the first chapter, the sages are there, and Sutta Goswami is selected as the speaker. And the first verses, I forgot the what's that? One day, the sages are ready to perform this sacrifice that will last how many years? 1,000 years, right? So 1,000 years is a long, long time, right? We can see the difference in Kali Yuga. You know, we start checking the time, and after 25 minutes generally, that's how scientifically our brain can remain sort of focused on one point, and then we start getting worried, looking at our watch, and okay, when is this going to end? Some of us, not everyone. So, Bhagavatam brings more time. However, also, in one sense, it was time limited, because how many days Parikshit Maharaj had? 7 days. So not much time, right? So it's always this time thing. But in those 7 days, Sukadeva Goswami will explain the power of bhakti. And the power of bhakti, we can argue, is manifested by different agents. And one agent is the holy name. The last verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam glorifies the process of Sankirtan. Nama Sankirtana Ajasya. So the very last verse. This is the process. Nama Sankirtana Ajasya. We'll purify all the sins. We'll cleanse your heart. Just by offering obeisance to the Supreme Lord, whose name can destroy all sort of inauspiciousness. The very same thing that it is explained in the beginning of Bhagavatam, it is concluded at the end. To establish the supremacy of Krishna, but more importantly, the devotional service to Krishna, His holy name. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. like that. His name, his form, his pastimes, his qualities. These are the essential message of the Bhagavad school. But most importantly, in our line, we find Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we can say, okay, Krishna, he says several times in the Gita, after this, there's nothing else to be known, right? Many times he says that. In chapter 7, chapter 10, a few places he says, after this, that's it. I think in chapter 15 he repeats the same thing. He says, I'm going to teach you something which is better than anything that I have said before. So he repeatedly is emphasizing the importance of this knowledge. And then the Bhagavatam brings the examples. So we may think, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, what is the need? Sometimes, I think there is a verse in Bhagavatam that says, what is the need of any other scripture? Right? So, we may think, what for? Already 700 verses, for some of us it's a lot. And then we have another 18,000 verses or so. So we said, okay, that's enough. We had so many incarnations, so many pastimes, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes. And the way that Srila Prabhupada explains this is just like, remember when we were little? And we were learning A, B, C, and 1, 2, 3, and stick and circle and that sort of things. And so Prabhupada says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes to grab our hands. That's what he says. In New York, he gave a number of lectures on Caitanya Caritamrita. I don't know how many people would have grasped what was Prabhupada talking about. But right in those early days, he was speaking, big philosophy, deep philosophy. And of course, purifying all those who had the fortune to hear directly from him. So he explains repeatedly that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it's Krishna himself that comes and he grabs our hand and he helps us to write. This is how you do it. This is bhakti. Right? So Chaitanya Caritamrita is that. It's sometimes Amrita, it's translated as nectar. Right? Amrita is nectar. Also can be translated as eternal, because Mrita refers to death. Amrita is no death. So the eternal nectar of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's character. So in our line, there are two things which are emphasized. One is achar, and the other one is prachar. Achar is our behavior. That's why the founder Acharya, that's a word that is quite important. Acharya, founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada. By the way, Prabhupada said, since we are in that line, that he wanted 10 million acharyas. You know that? Prabhupada said he wanted 10 million acharyas. Right? He doesn't say only gurus, he says acharyas. 10 million. The quotes are there. In other words, what he wanted is many devotees who are able to teach others, who are able to present the true process of bhakti, who are perfect examples, exemplary teachers, and able to save the land. That's the idea. So here we heard about, what is the devotee we are reading about? Just two. Dhananyaya Pandit. Dhananyaya. And there are so many others like that, and all of them have different pastimes and interactions. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is explained that Krishna comes, but he doesn't come in the same with the same color. Krishna Varna, Trisha Krishna, Sangopangatra Parsadam. That he comes with his associates. That's Bhagavatam, right? I don't know if I mentioned this before in previous class, but Prabhupada was giving class in Mexico, and it's translated by Rinanda Maharaj. And at the end, one devotee asked why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not mentioned in Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada got a bit annoyed. He said, you should ask questions regarding to the class. But he answered nevertheless. He says, but he is mentioned. And then he quoted this verse, Krishna Varnam Tisa Krishna Sangopanga Parshadam. So Parshadam in that verse refers to associates. So when the Lord comes, he doesn't come alone. Prabhupada often says that. He says, you'll never see a picture of Krishna on his own. At least there will be some calves, some birds, or some, Krishna doesn't like to be alone. He likes to be with his devotees. So, these devotees are described here, and it is important. I also remember one conversation. Some devotees I think it was in LA, and they were asking Prabhupada that, why all these details in the first chapter? When you read the first chapter, and all these generals and all these warriors are mentioned, So sometimes the tendency is like, quick, let me just jump and get to the real thing. I mean, the scholars do say that the Gita begins in chapter 2 when Krishna starts speaking, What verse is that? 2:7? No, 2:7 is Arjuna. Asochanam vasochastvam. When Krishna tells Arjuna, you are talking big words, but you are lamenting like a fool. Right? So that's when Gita really starts, we may say. But in the first chapter, it is like a bridge from the Mahabharata towards what Krishna is going to speak. So the devotees ask Prabhupada, is this thing, historical facts and names, are that important? And Prabhupada got a bit heavy, and then he says, yes, they are. Because they are the elements of the pastime. So you need to learn about them. You need to know about them. It's like when you cook. I'm not a cook by any means, but my wife is. So, you have this and that and so many ingredients. And so on their own, they may not have much meaning. You're not going to take some black pepper or hing or whatever it is on its own. But when you mix it, then enhances the flavor of the whole preparation. So in the same way, we may say or we may think, so many names, what is the point? Sometimes we get lazy like that, Kali Yuga mind. And but they are important because they enhance the pastime of the Lord. Nama, Rupa, Guna, Lila. So in this case, Dhananyaya, Pandit. But the main thing is the Chaitanya Caritamrita brings that spirit of what does bhakti mean. This is what bhakti means. And what is that last bit that says in the verse? He says, Sada Krishna Prema Maya. Sada Krishna Prema Maya. Sada means always. Prabhupada sometimes translated this word as every day. Sometimes we say always or eternally, Sada. I'm going to pay you someday. Right? No, but Prabhupada said every day. So sadhana, like that also. Sometimes we have that. Sat, eternal. Krishna Prema Maya. Merge in love of Krishna. The 16th dear servant of Nityananda Prabhu was Dhananyaya Pandit. He was very much renowned and always merged in love of Krishna. Sada Krishna Prema Maya. That's the line. So today we are remembering Srila Prabhupada's journey. And as I said, he was reading, we can picture Prabhupada seasick and heart attack. He wasn't able to eat, sometimes for days. And he wrote 2 poems, one just before he arrived in America, and then another one just when he arrived. I remember that there was a post on Facebook about this, and I wrote something, and Gargamuni Prabhu corrected me because he's compiling some things, teachings from Prabhupada. And he says, no, if you looked at the date, one is earlier, like that. So in those 2 poems, Srila Prabhupada expresses the mission that he was carrying. He was bringing the order of his spiritual master to preach in the West, and to, we may say, battle with the opponents of bhakti, right? And what are those? Mayavada and Sunyavada. So he came to battle that. That's the battle that one of the things that he wanted to do. And then he expresses the importance of the mission, and he considers himself a humble, what does he say? How does he sign? The most insignificant beggar. Reminds me like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he established or re-established the Sankirtan process, and he called himself, what was the title that or the role, the post, the job that he took? You should know. The sweeper. The sweeper. In Mayapur or in other places, holy places, you see sometimes the sweepers come in the morning. Not sometimes, every day. Right? Mayapur, every day at a certain time, they come and sweep. Right? Just before the program. I remember going to other holy places also, in Kurukshetra, and then people fight for these services. They grab and then clean like that, So Bhaktivinoda Thakur called himself the sweeper of the holy name. Because he was meant to keep the place clean. So no speculations. As you know, he fought also the Apasampradayas, the deviant lines, people who would say this is bhakti and it was just something else like that. So he was a sweeper. He just make sure that everything was clean. So Srila Prabhupada brings that message from the Acharyas. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, Gaur Kishore, Das Babaji Jagannath, Das Babaji, the 6 Goswamis. He brings that in his heart and in the trunks, the Bhagavatam. The Bhagavatam, when in the first 3 verses, explain what this book is all about. It's about Bhagavan, it's about the bhakti, and it's about the devotees, Bhagavata. What's that verse? Tulayama lavena pi Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya. That even a moment of association with a devotee who is associated with the Lord, then that will bring all the fortune, better than the heaven. Not swargam, not punarvavam. What to speak of this world that is so limited. So that's what Chaitanya Caritamrita brings. It's, as I said, opening the storehouse of bhakti. Krishna mentions bhakti in the Gita. Bhakti is exemplified in Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Lord Himself comes and grabs our hands and says, this is how you do it. This is how you think. This is how you feel. Just we analyze the Shishikshastaka, Shikastaka, as Prabhupada would say, presented at the very end of Chaitanya Caritamrita, right? Shikshastaka is presented there. It's translated a little different from how we generally recite it. There we see what is the potency of this movement. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. Right? But there is a problem. What is that problem? We don't have attachment. Nanuragaha. We don't have true attachment. We have attachment sometimes during the day, sometimes during the week, maybe when there are festivals, and we all feel, But then, sada, prema, Sada Krishna prema brahma. Prema maya. Sada Krishna prema maya. All the time, thinking all the time. So when we read Prabhupada's diary when he was traveling, then we can see that he was completely absorbed. Although he was sick, although he was at the verge of death, he was thinking, how can I please my Lord? And as he said in this poem that he wrote, Vrindavane Bhajan, he says the mantra of perfection is the one spoken by Arjuna. Karishye vachanam tava. Now I will do what you ask me to do. That's what Arjuna says at the end of Bhagavad Gita. By your mercy, nastamoha smriti labda. The illusion is gone, my consciousness is regained, my memory is regained, and I'm going to do what you want me to do. That was the mood. So Prabhupada took that mood, and he crossed the ocean. In fact, Shastra says that a sannyasi shouldn't travel like that. Many things are there. I don't know if it's Hari Bhakti Vilas or somewhere, I don't know exactly. But often Prabhupada says that a sannyasi shouldn't cross the ocean. Is that correct, Maharaj? Yeah, right? I mean, you break that rule all the time. You're always traveling, you know. Sannyasis are the ones who break the rule. I wish Grihasthas we can afford that too. So many things are there that are explained in the Shastra. A sannyasi shouldn't leave. I forgot the Sanskrit, but sometimes when devotees make the vow of remaining in Vrindavan, they say, I wouldn't, like Krishna also says that, I wouldn't take a step out of Vrindavan. I forgot the Sanskrit. So when the devotees go to Vrindavan, they say, okay, no more. I'm not leaving the holy dham. But he broke all these things for the sake of pleasing his spiritual master and fulfilling the message of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. So on this day we honor that pastime, we honor that example, and we pray that we are able to somehow assist. When Prabhupada came and established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, as sometimes we read or hear the anecdotes from those days, from the devotees who were there, Mukunda Maharaj, others, they say that when Prabhupada brought that name, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, they thought, they giggled, they were like, oh, that's cute. Swamiji is quite, creative and hopeful, and just a handful of people. There are hardly 5-6 devotees there. They thought, oh, Swamiji is so right? So they couldn't see. They couldn't see what Prabhupada was seeing. And also in the Lilamrita it is said that a bus driver or something that was sitting next to Prabhupada at some point, and then he asked him, what are you doing here? He was alone. The movement hasn't really started. And Prabhupada said something like, I have many temples, I have many devotees, but only time is separating us. Something like that, So Prabhupada could see, drishta, he could see that all these things will happen. And he established 7 purposes, right? I always try to remember them, I always forget them. So one of the purposes is to establish holy places like this, new Govardhana, right? And then we have so many new, I don't know how many new tirthas we have in the West, right? New Vrindavan. In South America we have Nueva Mayapur. In France also we have Nova Mayapur. That's all these new Jagannath Puri. I think San Francisco's called like that. So every temple was new something, right? New Goloka, new this, new that, right? And at least my experience being here for a few months and having visited a few times, it is one of the most beautiful places in the world, isn't it? I mean, that's from what I have seen, it's incredible. I think Sri Prahlad, somebody was telling me that Sri Prahlad was saying that when he grew up here in the Gurukul, they will read the Krishna book and then they will look around. Somebody was telling me a class that he gave. He will look around and he will say, oh, it's like this. When somebody will tell stories about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then you see the palm trees and the river. You open the book, then you close the book and just look around. And you say, oh, it is like this. Right? So this place is really, really special. Really special. Even the mountains, are so unique. It's really incredible. It's incredible. By the mercy of Prabhupada. And I remember once Vishnu Prabhu was giving a class a long time back when I just arrived in Perth 20 odd years ago. And he said, when we come to a temple, sometimes we see people like me, critical and, fault finders. In the beginning everything is nice, people are nice, smiling, and they give you prasad. But after some time, what happens? You start seeing faults. Oh, this should be cleaner, and this should be better, and again Kitri, So mine starts playing up. So Vishnu Prabhu was saying, just imagine that this place wouldn't be here. Imagine if this place wouldn't be here. Yeah, maybe beautiful and all that, but empty, like a desert. So the fact that this place is here, by the desire of Prabhupada and by the service of his followers, his devotees, then we have the great fortune to take advantage of this and advance and do something. Not just enjoy, give me. There's a lecture Prabhupada gives. This give me mentality. What can I take? Right? The mentality should be take. Here, Krishna, please take this. There's a nice clip where Prabhupada is heard. He starts explaining about bhakti. And then he says, I am rotten, he says, but I have brought you this. Please accept it. And then he starts crying. Yeah? So this is bhakti. This is the feeling of a devotee. Bhakti is in the heart of a devotee. We only can learn about bhakti from someone who has bhakti. And bhakti is practical. Bhakti is tangible. It's not only a feeling. Yes, Prabhupada had that feeling in his heart. Like sometimes nowadays we talk about yoga and bhakti sometimes is thrown in. We think that bhakti is just a feeling and breathe deep and have a beautiful surrounding. No, bhakti is much more than that. Bhakti, Krishna says in the 11th canto, he tells Uddhava, I am not different from bhakti. Right? So if we are able to feel, that's why the acharyas pray, if I can feel one drop, and that often we hear, if I can feel one drop of bhakti, if love moves so much in this material world, everything is about love. I love my car, my cat, my this, my that, my country, the trees, the whales, whatever it is. Imagine what is love for Godhead. So we don't know that. Therefore, Gita explains it, Bhagavatam exemplifies it, and Chaitanya and Caritamrita, the Lord Himself comes and shows it. This is how it is. This is how you write A, B, C. This is how you feel what bhakti is. And specifically, Srila Prabhupada sacrificing his life, traveling and bringing the message of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, and establishing this wonderful temple, this wonderful movement and the devotees. And like Satsuru Maharaj used to say, there's a saying, I think it is something like, New York, with all thy faults, I love you. So he will Krishnaize that. He says, ISKCON, with all thy faults, I love you. So this commitment for this movement is something that we can hope for, because yes, there are problems and there are mistakes and there are faults and the place could be a little bit more whatever or less whatever, But what these places, these books, these devotees are bringing, it's love for Godhead, which is the highest. Prema Pumarta Mahan. So thank you very much. We stop here. If there's any questions or corrections or comments, my apologies for my superiors to speak in front of them. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Any questions? Any points?
I'm just wondering that Dhananjaya Pandit that's mentioned in this verse, that's the same Dhananjaya Pandit. It's the same Dhananjaya that was at Bhagavatam style?
I don't know.
Was he called Dhananjaya?
I don't know. I don't remember. The same Dhananjaya that he used to recite Bhagavatam?
The one that his students defended Sri Rasa, and then later on he served like Pandit.
I don't. It doesn't say anything. I remember that pastime, but I don't remember that he was the one. But yeah, no, I don't know. You know, the bird can fly according to its wing, and that's as far as I can go. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.